Hello, Internet. Seth Skorkowski coming at you live. Can everybody hear me all right? Let me just make sure that I've got everything working in here. No real plan for tonight. Just going to go ahead and just do a live Q&A chat about whatever. But tonight is actually a kind of a special occasion. This is my very first video that I have ever had any assistance on. I'm normally kind of a one-man show. But after the last live Q&A, and I was kind of having trouble trying to keep up with questions and everything like that, my buddy George, one of my players, is helping produce this, as well as his son Cole. So I am going to have a little bit of assistance on this one to hopefully kind of stay organized and keep everything going well. But this is a live Q&A. So feel free to ask me any questions that you want. But I figure what I'll do is I'm going to start off with, on the last Q&A that I did, somebody had asked a question about how I handle some of the kind of the more racist or offensive elements in Lovecraftian fiction if I was doing this in a Call of Cthulhu game. And my stream cut out, and it looked like it had edited. And people had accused me of editing out something, but no, it was just my internet cut out. So go ahead and start off when talking about elements of racism or sexism or homophobia, any sort of hate or anything like that in a tabletop role-playing game. I really just, go ahead and treat it as something that you might find on the individual level. Never make it to the point that's uncomfortable for anyone playing in the game. You don't have to make anything perfectly historically accurate. So what I had talked about in my Call of Cthulhu video on the subject was I will have a racist or sexist person, but I'm not going to do the institutionalized racism or sexism on that. But we just keep it to a racist or sexist jerk. Leave it at that. It's more of a kind of a color that we just kind of flavor the world with. And we do this also in fantasy games, where you might have a town that is against dwarves or a town that is against elves. But I don't want to dwell on it. I don't want to ever make this something that takes away from the game. So I finally get to answer that question. Since last time I thought I'd answered it very well, and then after the video was over, I found out that it cut out. So that was a bummer. Go ahead and look here. Pwned MSCS. Hi. Like they have a policy of not making a video about games you don't have any experience with. Would playing a game be enough to allow you to make something about it? It depends on the game. If it is a simple system, like Tiny Frontiers, I had done a review for, and we had played just a long session of that after going through character creation, all that. That's a whole system I think is less than 20 pages long. That one I could do. However, if it is a kind of a full rule set system, no. For example, right now we're playing Traveler, and we're, I don't know, 5-6 sessions in, and I'm not ready to review Traveler yet. Conan, same thing. That took us about 7 adventures, I believe. And before I felt that I was confident enough to review it. So if it's kind of a small type of game, if it's like a quick start rules or one of those little micro games that they have, sure, one session I feel like I can kind of do everything that's in it. But if it's a full rule set, no, I want to have several sessions. I want to experience a lot more about it before I feel confident I can really say that I know what it's about and how it works, because certain issues that pop up in games, as well as some nice aspects to it, they don't reveal themselves right away. It might take gaining some levels or getting some special abilities or anything before you start seeing some of the good points or some of the rougher points in the tabletop game. So if you just play a single session of a full system, you really don't get an idea of what the full scope of it is. See, Mike Zimmerman, how do you handle intelligence weapons like Black Razor, etc.? Man, Black Razor is a personal favorite of mine. Man, that just depends on the weapon. Normally, I do them more humorously. I've always had, they always get a special voice. And the big thing to do with the weapon, though, is to remember that it has its own agenda. And in the older editions of Dungeons and Dragons, the ego weapons, any intelligent weapon was an ego weapon. It could force its wielder to do certain things. It would have a conflict of egos, or it would refuse to act for them. So it was a really good way of having an NPC that actually does have a kind of an air of possible control over a player character. So that kind of requires a little bit of negotiating between them in order for the player character to get the weapon to do what the player character wants that the weapon might not want to do. So that's kind of a fun aspect. But any sort of magical weapon, you should treat it with the full scope that you treat any NPC, as far as giving it a personality and making it feel like a separate entity. I just like to do it with a funny voice usually. So for us, they're mostly comedic. Let's see. Patrick Stockton. Hey, Seth, love your reviews. Any plan to dive more into classic D&D modules? I do have a couple more classic D&D modules that I want to do, but a lot of them just require a lot of the work. I have to get the PDF for it, have to read through it several times like that. Because most of the modules, I might not have actually played it in the last 10 years, so it requires a lot of refreshing. I am excited to say that this February at TotalCon, which is going to be outside of Boston, I will be getting to play first edition D&D's Ghost Tower of Inverness with the original author. We're doing a kind of a small get-together for that. So I'm actually really excited about that. So that's going to be a cool experience to get to play that with the author of the scenario. So after I do play that, I will be doing a review, of course. But we'll see. A lot of it comes down to a lot of the older modules. Since I do have to have played them, well, most of my time spent playing D&D or running D&D, we weren't using modules, or I was cutting modules up. So there's a lot of them that I know all about them, and I've used a lot of the elements to them, but I've never actually run the module. I've just kind of slowly pieced it out and put little pieces in this adventure and this adventure and this adventure, but then I never ran the module. So I'm not going to review those because I don't really know how those all are going to work when they're together, as well as the elements of the module that I didn't actually run. Let's see. Martin Templey, question. You ever play D&D with the old deities and demigods Cthulhu mythos? I have that deities and demigods. That is one of the ones that I'm actually fairly proud of. But I never used the Cthulhu mythos when I was playing first edition D&D. And a lot of that just came down to the fact that I didn't understand the Cthulhu mythos. It just looked really weird. I hadn't read any Lovecraft or anything like that at the time. So I just kind of enjoyed having the deities and demigods for the novelty factor. Then it was years later that I discovered Lovecraft and I learned all about him. So at that point, I could have, but not back when we were playing first edition. Let's see. What is the worst game you've ever played? From Rollspellerin. The worst game that I've ever played, man. As far as systems go, I gotta admit it. I was not a fan of third edition AD&D, or I guess it wasn't even AD&D. It was just D&D. I wasn't a fan of 3E. I was a diehard first and second edition player. 3E came out. I reluctantly went over to it. I did not like it. Went back to our first second edition hybrid. Then we went off. We played Cyberpunk and a lot of other games. We left D&D behind, and we came back when 5th edition came out. Enjoyed 5th edition. So, but 3rd edition is probably the only one that I really didn't like. I've had other games out there that I've read that didn't look like I would enjoy them, so I just never played them. So the question was if I played it, so I can't count any of those. But as far as systems I didn't like, 3rd edition wasn't it. Pablo, hi Seth. I've been haunted by paper chase scenario. I've been haunted by the paper chase ever since you posted the video. How do you sell the uncle's decision to become a ghoul to the players? Did you have any reservations about it? Well, the uncle in Paper Chase, you have to remember, is a bit of a recluse. He's a bit weird. He is trying to escape the kind of the banality of the world. That's why he is always reading his books, and he finds dealing with other people to be an inconvenience. So you have it be where it is the allure of kind of the fantastical to enter his life. And that is what kind of initially draws him. But then you have the added aspect that no one will bother him. He can enjoy solitude. He can enjoy none of the pressures that life puts on him. He doesn't have to pay taxes anymore or anything like that. He doesn't have to deal with world politics. He can just enjoy his books. He's got his own little ghouly friends that he can hang out with whenever he wants to see anybody, but there's no real pressures of real life anymore. To him, it's kind of like Bilbo Baggins going on an adventure if Bilbo Baggins decided to eat corpses instead of steal dragons' gold. But other than that, it's just the exact same story. So let's see. Rook Gateway Traveler, do your characters feel the lack of progression? With Traveler, we actually have quite a bit of progression. I am using the Mongoose 2nd edition rules, and with those, there is an optional rule in the Traveler Companion to do experience points. So for our normal sessions, they'll get 2 experience points at the end of an adventure, and then I will award out any individual experience points that I see fit. Like if somebody does something really amazing with their pilot skills, I'll give yourself 1 XP under pilot, in addition to the 2 that I give out. And they actually have been progressing along pretty well. No, you're not going to have the level type progression that you do in a level-based game where they go up a lot faster. And it doesn't go up as fast as even some skill-based games like Call of Cthulhu, where if you use a skill, you get to roll at the end of that adventure, session, whatnot, to increase that skill a little bit. So it is slower than those, but we haven't had any issue with slow progression in that. Let's see. I'm a keeper, $4.99. Thank you very much. I've been reading a lot of RPG horror stories online and wondered if you had any bad, funny experience to share involving a bad player / dungeon master, etc. Oh, well, then I've got a lot of terrible, terrible stories, but let me see which ones I think would at least be decent to give in this format. A lot of my videos over bad players, there's always a story behind every single one of those. So there's quite a bit. I have had a player throw a full-blown temper tantrum during a game. It was when we were playing 3rd edition, oddly enough, but we only had 2 books in the entire room. We had about 6 players plus myself, and one of the players really wanted to use the player's handbook for something, and somebody else was using it, and he actually stood up and he balled his fists and he squealed and stormed out of the room, and that kind of murdered the mood for a good portion of the game. So I'll put that as a really good horror story, because it was a college-educated grown adult literally threw a 5-year-old temper tantrum. Let's see. DJ Samaritan, thank you, $20. Hey Seth, love your character skits. Just finished watching your 4th Thor video last night. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That was a wonderful, wonderful experience of basically everybody at the table, doing 4 Thor, 4 Thor. It was that was an amazing game, because for the first portion of that incident, as the game master, I'm thinking, let's just kind of hurry up and get through this. Let's get through this as fast as we can to get to this wonderful adventure that we're all in. Except then, this player kept rolling the most supernaturally awful rolls that it just kind of became this domino effect, and we ended up just running with it. But for the first half of it, all of us were kind of looking at this as like, oh, okay, this is amusing, but when's this going to be over? And then kind of that pause of, this isn't ending. This is still going. And the player, who just absolutely beautifully embraced the failure that he was going through, just ran with it off into lunacy, and we had a lot of fun. But yeah, that was one of those great times that we had not expected in the least up until when it happened. Crovan, okay, $5. Thank you. Hey, Seth, I'm thinking about running Dread for Halloween session with my group. Any thoughts of the system and or tips? Love the channel. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it. If you're asking about Call of Cthulhu, absolutely. But Dread for Halloween, sorry, never played it, never read it. Okay. Howdy, Seth. Thanks for your videos. Not only having a blast running Salt Marsh, but thank you for my group gotten super into Cyberpunk 2020. What are your thoughts on Cyberpunk Red so far? I am going to be running my first game of Red tomorrow, so I will give you my official opinion sometime after tomorrow. I hope to actually have my first review up for that in the next 2 weeks, I hope. I'm mostly done with all of my slides, but so far my thoughts on it are it has whetted my appetite enough that I want to see the full rules, but the Jumpstart Kit does leave a lot of questions that I have. Namely, they're the hit locations. They don't do hit locations like they do in Cyberpunk 2020. You could get an arm or a leg or a torso or arm, and then head, and then it was random. With Cyberpunk Red, at least the jump start, so the kind of neutered down rules, you have body and head, and you have to call shot to hit the head. There's no random rolling of a body location, which that we had a lot of wonderful stories that came out of odd places that the PCs kept shooting the bad guys, or the bad guys kept getting shot. For a while, there was the joke that all you need to armor is your right leg, because that's the only place you get hit in our games. But so I'm hoping to see that expanded. I love what they did to Netrunners. I absolutely love what they did to Netrunners. It makes sense. It's playable, and it doesn't require that you essentially have to run a completely separate game at the same time as the PCs. So I really do like the net running aspect to it. The art, so much about it that I do like, but a lot of it still comes with the caveat of, okay, I want to see what the full version is, because Cyberpunk Red's Jumpstart Kit is not a complete game. We have no rules on advancement, for example, but there is one adventure as well as 3 short screen sheet adventures, and those look like a lot of fun. One of my favorite Cyberpunk adventures that I ever ran was an old screen sheet from 2020 where you had to do an escort mission with a truck. So I think the screen sheets, what I've read so far, looks good. So I'll tell you in a week or two. Let's see. Went to see Capital Market Theaters. They played in-game trailer beforehand. Theater for maybe 10 people. With Thor came about screens, someone back shouted for Thor. My God, that has brought me joy. That is, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I did have somebody recently tell me, I think in a video comment, that they spotted a Scott Brown shirt in the wild, and that's cool. I haven't bumped into anybody that's wearing any shirts or anything like that. I did see there is a website out there that is for world building. It's a really cool site, and I'm blanking on the name right now. World Hammer, and there is a Scott Brown world that somebody's doing, like for Cyberpunk 2090. Because I was kind of putzing around on there and I saw that. So that also brought me joy that some of the little things that we came up with in our war stories are kind of infiltrating everywhere else. Alexander Mazzi, $2. Hey, Seth, got any advice on ending a D&D campaign? Okay, I'm going to do a video on how to end a campaign at some point, but my opinion when it comes to ending a campaign is it should be epic. I want it to be that the players have to fight tooth and nail to get it through. And I will be very open and honest that I'm going to make this one hell of a fight. This is a finale, and while I don't want to total party kill the group, I will be a little disappointed if everybody survives through the end of it. We have done a few campaigns where that has happened. One of the best ones ever, player character ended up sacrificing himself to save the group, because it was either he could sacrifice himself and as a way to get rid of the big evil bad guy, or they could all fight the big evil bad guy, and they didn't think they could beat him, and he ended up doing it all on his own, but it took his life in the process. That was epic and wonderful. We also had a Cyberpunk campaign end where all of the player characters betrayed each other. I had secretly set it up where they all had back deals going on, and they didn't have to accept any of the deals. It was just before the final job. Several of them got approached, and people are like, "Hey, if you betray the group, we'll give you all of this." So I had 2 or 3 of these back deals going on. Didn't know if the players were even going to do them. I just thought it'd be kind of fun to throw temptation in their ear. And literally, as they're making their escape, they're in a little mini sub. They're about 200 meters below the surface. There's a lot of pressure. And they're kind of like, yeah, we did it. And then everybody starts pulling out guns and shooting each other. And then one player character pulled out a grenade, and the mini sub did not handle that. And all the player characters died. So they actually finished the campaign full survival, which was kind of amazing because that was a tough game. And then all died shortly after that due to their own betrayals of each other. At that point, I was just sitting back like an audience member. That was kind of wild. But as far as ending a D&D campaign, you can try to have somebody kind of coax a player character into betraying the party just on the sly. But I prefer with a game like that, you have a big epic battle, and you make it the type of battle where they are probably not all going to survive it, and they will fight tooth and nail for everything that they have. And when they succeed, which is the goal, they know that they earned it. Like there's no question in their mind that was close and that was epic. And that to me is the best way we've ever ended D&D campaigns. Chris Allen, $2. Thank you very much. Any thoughts on Pathfinder 2E versus D&D 5E? Never played Pathfinder 1 or 2E. 5th edition I do like, but D&D isn't really my jam because it's a class-based or level-based system. I prefer a skill-based game. Pathfinder, I know, is the most like 3rd edition D&D, so I'm probably just based off that going to lean more towards 5th edition D&D. But I have no idea what's going on with the 2nd edition Pathfinder. So I don't know. Sorry. Well, Josette, $20. Oh my God, thank you. You guys don't have to pay me by any means, but thank you very much. This is kind of amazing. Hopefully I'm at least answering your questions. Anyways, well, Gillette, $20. Howdy, Seth. Thanks for all you do, sir. Oh my God, it's just a thank you. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you very much. Glad you enjoy the channel. This has been a kind of an odd journey. It started 3 years ago. I just kind of set up a camera and I did a single take video. It was 30 minutes. I just did the RPG social contract. I had a post-it note with some bullet points on it. I had the worst camera. I had the worst audio. I didn't really know what I was saying. I hadn't written out, so I had to do a lot of pauses and ums and think about it. It was terrible, but that opened the door for me to make the next video and the next, and it's kind of evolved into what it is today. So it's been kind of a fun journey. We're about to have that 3-year next or this November coming up. So how much has changed? Let's see. J Turbo, $5. Thank you. Aseth, how do you deal with players dying in the middle of a Call of Cthulhu session, especially when you know there's going to be a couple hours left? Oh, okay. There's no one answer that I can give that can cover all situations on this, just because every game is different in how it's set up. But if a player character dies and we know we don't have enough time to bring in a new character before it's over, because normally what I'll try to do is I tell everybody to have a backup character. Whether they make a backup character or not is not necessarily the case. But sometimes where they are, they're in some sort of pocket dimension. There's no way a backup character could come in. But I normally try to have a backup character be introduced. We have had a character come in once to basically help clean up the mess at the kind of the later 10% of an adventure. But another method that I will do in games where I know there is going to be a high possibility of fatalities is I will have the NPC that's following them around. And this is actually where the Jack the NPC character, the real one, did come from, is he would follow the group around. He He would occasionally offer some good advice. He was mostly kind of comic relief. Not all of his advice was good. Some of it was intentionally bad. That way, the players would not immediately trust anything that he said. So he would give bad advice. He always failed his sanity rolls. That way, he was taken out of most combats. And if a player character died, they got to play Jack. They just basically handed him his character sheet, and they got to play Jack until we could find a spot that they could bring in their normal character. That was only in cases where there was not a physical way a new character could join the game at that point. Otherwise, if there is a physical way we can get a new character in, I will do my best to let them get their own character in. But hopefully that long, rambling answer actually answered your question. But thank you. Declan Joe, it's $5. Hi, Seth. It seems silly to me that GMs have to spend ages writing modules when every other GM is also doing that. Why isn't sharing collaboration more common? Well, it's personal taste, but also game masters love to write their own stuff. And there is an incredible amount of collaboration ideas. Recently, I did a video over a Traveler module that was from like 1979. And I ran, it was called Anecnova. And I found a forum or an old message board from 1999 of game masters kind of plotting ideas and thinking about it and discussing this scenario and different ways to interpret it. And this was, these guys are all on dial-up, and they're talking about a 20-year-old scenario at the time. So basically, once two gamers finally got access to the internet, game masters have been swapping ideas back and forth. But ultimately, GMs, man, we love kind of making up our own stuff. Even if we are using a pre-written scenario, we like personalizing it. We really making it our own. So, and then, there's with the self-pub market that's out there now, a lot of different systems have it where you can publish scenarios for their games. There's a lot more of them going on right now. So there's a lot more creative people releasing their games and releasing their ideas. So I think there's a lot more collaboration now. DK Samaritan, $5. Thank you. Is that do you host Roll20 with fan participants? I do not. I have never been on Roll20. Sorry. This is like the closest I've ever done to, the one before this and this one, to some sort of event that I host with fans. Other than that, you just kind of got to bump into me at a convention and I will talk your ear off, but nothing on Roll20. Spooky Mage! Hey, $5. Thank you. Hey, Seth, I want to say thank you for videos on Call of Cthulhu. My players love the game, and I just wanted to thank you for all your videos. I'm really happy you enjoy it. Call of Cthulhu was one of those games that I had heard about years and years ago, but the person that I heard it about from was really weird. And I usually didn't follow any of his advice when he's like, "You've got to try this." I'm like, yeah, sure. And how he described Call of Cthulhu to me is not how it was once we got to play it. But, I think he was 17 and he was older when he was telling me about it. But discovering that game, when I first read it, it had a very big kind of, where the hell has this been all my life? It absolutely wonderful system. I hope you guys have a lot of fun with it. There is so much that you can do just with the game mechanics themselves. So hope you guys have fun. Corvan, you don't have a Patreon that I found, and my audiobook queue is very long, so I want to support somehow. Well, if you can't get one of the audiobooks because your queue is huge, and I have been there. I'm an audiobook addict myself. I'm currently listening to Rosemary's Baby, old classic horror novel. The other way is, I do have a little thing. It has like T-shirts and stuff like that if you ever want to get like some swag. I don't have a Patreon, and the big reason that I don't have a Patreon is reward levels. I don't want to have to start making content for the people that are backing my Patreon as kind of a thank you because they're at a whatever level reward, and then that starts detracting from my main channel itself. Since I am kind of a one-man outfit, I would rather just go ahead and devote all of my attention as far as the stuff that I'm making to go ahead and just give to my regular channel. So Patreon, the big reason I haven't done it is I don't know what it is that anybody would even really want as a reward, because you want to make it something that's like kind of like makes it look like you're trying to give them something nice rather than just having a giant tip jar, which I would love to have just a giant tip jar. But anyways, maybe I'll do it one day. But other than that, if you work down your audiobooks, feel free to download and listen to any of those. Hopefully you like them. Don't download them if they don't sound like your thing. Of course, there's shirts, and then this little thing, people are donating money, but other than that, you don't need to feel like you need to donate or give me any money or anything like that, though I do like it. Just enjoy the stuff, and sometimes the positive comments. I have had a positive comment completely change my day before, so sometimes that is amazingly nice. So, but glad you enjoy the channel. See, BDS Empire, $10. Thank you. Thank you for all the great content and module reviews. I've learned a lot about game mastering from your videos. Your skits crack me up. Have you ever played Chill with your group? I have not played Chill, but I have heard a lot about it. A lot of the people in the Call of Cthulhu groups have discussed Chill, but I've never played it myself. So sorry. DK Samaritan, hello. $5. Thank you. Love your acting skill. I know it's all you, but I forget at the same time. It's awesome. Also, Scott Brown, motherfucker. I'll be honest, when I am editing my own stuff, I sometimes find it hard to believe that they're all me as well. So, but there are some comically bad fake mustaches going on when I do that. And if you listen real close, Mustache Mike and Jack the NPC's voices sometimes kind of sound alike. I've had to actually retake a lot of different takes, or all of a sudden I realize that Jack is talking like Mike or Mike is talking like Jack. So I don't even have the full range of voices that a proper voice actor would have. It's mostly me just wearing a really bad outfit, and I'm masking that with putting a black and white filter on it. But glad you enjoy it. Plastic Hero, $5. Thank you. Hey, Seth, this is my favorite RPG channel. I don't begrudge D&D fans, but my tastes have always run more towards yours, skill-based plus flavor. Thanks. Skill-based games, we got really spoiled once we discovered skill-based games. Our first one was Cyberpunk 2020. And while we had played Cyberpunk as kind of a side game for so long, we pretty much treated it like just D&D with machine guns. And once we decided to actually turn that into our primary game and really started caring more about how do you advance, how do you use all these skills, I picked up a couple modules, and the modules showing like how they were using skills or how they were meant to be used in the game. I was like, oh wow, we can use a lot of these skills. That kind of led to this journey of several years, or even did fantasy, doing a skill-based game with the cyberpunk mechanics and heavily modified, and then a 1920s pulp, sort of a Call of Cthulhu game with them, and we had a blast. And then when we've tried to go back to level-based games, they feel so limiting for us, with the idea that you have to get so many experience points to get this level, and these are the abilities that you have because you belong to this class. Just wasn't as much fun. It's one of those things, once you kind of get comfortable not having any limitation like that, those limitations suddenly kind of became really awkward for us. However, man, though, with a level-based game, sometimes it's kind of awesome to like get your character a ton of hit points and just go and kick ass. I mean, that's the big thing that those have that Call of Cthulhu doesn't have. D&D, you can go murder a ton of goblins, tons of orcs and stuff like that, and just have a blast doing that. So that's kind of the flip side to it. It's just we really enjoy the skill-based stuff more. Doxum, $2 for Thor. Hopefully that didn't blow my mic. DP, $2. Thank you. $2. Let's see. Just read Dameron. Loved it. Perfect for a TV adaptation. I know, right? If you know somebody, have them call me. I would love to see Dameron on a big or small screen. Hell, I'd watch it on my phone, but I'd love to see it. Iron Guts, $10. Thank you. He said, how do you deal with making a character in the Warhammer setting while their own power can be immense? How do you scale that sort of setting? It doesn't make them feel deceptively godlike. I don't know. I've never played Warhammer. Normally, I just kind of walk by and look at all the guys on the table with like their 10 million minis, but I've never actually played Warhammer before, so I don't know. Corey Wack, do you have an audiobook? Why, yes, I do. Why, yes, I have 6 audiobooks. So I am an author. I'm a fantasy author. That's actually what I technically am. So I have a urban fantasy series about monster hunters. They have these magic weapons and they kill these monsters from lore. And it ends up that it's actually some sort of kind of a demonic possession instead of a virus or something like that. So that is my Valdekin series. That is 4 novels long. And then I have my Black Raven series, which those are not novels. It's 2 books, but they're short story collections. They're kind of done in the same vein as the old sword and sorcery, pulpy Fafhrd and Grey Mouser sort of thing. So basically it's a collection of just little pulpy short stories or run through tropes, kind of like a checklist. So we have those on audio. They're read by R.C. Bray, who I think his most notable book that he's done was The Martian. And then 2 of my audiobooks, Dameron and Hanassier, were Audio Award finalists for Best Paranormal Audiobook of the Year. The Audio Awards is kind of the Oscars for audiobooks. So evidently, other people have enjoyed the book and not just my mom. So yes, I do have audiobooks. I also do have one short story that R.C. Bray did, and you can find that on Audible. It's like $3. It's a little standalone Black Raven adventure. So if you go to Audible, you'll technically see 7 items, but only 6 of them are books. Sergeant Hacker, I actually picked up a physical copy of Mountain of Daggers. Really enjoyed reading it. Good. I'm glad you liked it. I will say Sea of Quills, I was a little bit better at the craft when I was doing Sea of Quills. But Mountain of Daggers is very special. My very favorite story out of all of the Black Raven adventures, and it's not necessarily, I guess, the best story, but it's my favorite, is Race for the Night Ruby. And that's the one where they're in a Venetian city, and he has to be able to get the magic ruby before all the other gangs can close in on it. So that's actually my favorite of that series, mostly because I came up with that when I was on my honeymoon. We went to Venice, and I came back from my honeymoon, and I wrote that story. So that's probably the reason why that is my most special Black Raven adventure, and that is in Mountain of Daggers. But glad you enjoyed it. Let's see. Carl Dane, $24.99. Oh my God, thank you. New fan, and you bring me, all of us, lots of joy. Play on, sir. Play on. You too. You too. I am glad that you're enjoying the channel. It's kind of weird, you know. I kind of sit at home all day and I talk into a camera, then I put on a wig and I talk into the camera from a different side of the room. So I'm glad that everybody's enjoying it, because from my end, I kind of look like a crazy person. Fun story, real fast. I think in my first year of my channel, I was recording one day. I was doing the Jack the NPC sketches, and there was a knock at my door. And I was doing Fantasy Jack, who is wearing the steel helmet behind me with the chainmail and the big furry mantle. It's made out of coyote pelts. And I answered the door in that, and it was some guy who was trying to sell me a roof or something. But the amazing thing was he never mentioned it. I just answered the door, and he started giving me a sales pitch, and I told him I wasn't interested. And he's like, okay. And he walked away. Now, I'm pretty sure he went back to his car, his truck, or immediately pulled out his phone once he got out of eyeshot and started texting people going, oh my God, you would not believe the weirdo. But that did happen once. And that was the high point of my week. Necroforge, $5. Thank you. Seth, thanks so much for all your content. You're definitely one of the best. Just curious, have you ever had any interest in Savage Worlds? I don't know enough about Savage Worlds. I've heard of it, of course. It's been around for a while, but I've never read it. I've never felt any calling to read it, because there was never any time that I was in the market looking for something and Savage Worlds popped up and said, I got something you want. So Sorry. Mary D. Young, 25. Thank you. You have definite talent. Your videos are entertaining as they are informative. Well, I'm glad. Actually, my motto has been if I can't make them at least helpful for people, at least they can be entertaining for them. So I at least try to make my videos humorous. A lot of people, I think, I don't know, a lot of people seem to think that I'm a lot more serious than I am. I've had people comment that whenever I'm doing my normal thing and I'm talking to the camera, I seem so stoic and so damn serious. And then all of a sudden these zany skits happen. But that's mostly because I'm trying to like get all of my thoughts out. It's not that I'm serious, but also people will get themselves really caught up in a tizzy if somebody says something controversial about games. And I always kind of find it weird. People will get mad at me, and I'm the guy that's wearing a fake mustache. How seriously do you think I take a lot of this? See, Tyler, 2313. Hey, Seth, any thoughts of players becoming gods or liches? I love your thoughts on how to do this, man. Okay, Todd. Here's the dealio. I think that's badass, but really only if you are going to either A, make that a quest of theirs to become a god, or a leech. I think you have a quest to become a lich, and then with a god, you become one, because I guess maybe other gods make you one, or you do something rather epic. For some reason, I believe that making a god, you should do something more selfless, and with being a lich, you should do something more selfish. But I think that would be a really cool way to end a campaign, and then the next game or the next campaign starts up, and it's about killing the evil lich that used to be their old character. That could be a hell of a lot of fun. But as far as how to do it, I wouldn't do it quickly. I would actually have that be something that manifests over a lot of time. I once had a game where I had a player character slowly becoming a mind flayer because he picked up some sort of artifact weapon that was supposed to be used in the war between the drows and the mind flayers, and this thing was slowly on the outside making him look like a mind flayer. And that actually took course over, I guess, about 7 or 8 adventures, as he was slowly mutating more and more and more until finally he became this thing. And then it actually had to end with him selflessly dying. So he had a few games for himself to kind of get used to that idea. Let's see, Gannon Donnenberger, $5. Thank you. Hey, Seth, love the channel. Remembering watching you at the start, but also can't wait for the new Tales from the Miskatonic Valley coming out. I am looking forward to seeing it as well. I turned in, I guess, everything for my part of that scenario. I turned it in about a year ago, and then we went through editing. I guess we finished up editing 9 months ago. It's been a while. I've slept since then. So I've just been kind of sitting back waiting to see it. I want to see the art, because one of the things that's really cool when you write something and you become an author is seeing the art that somebody draws from the thing that came out of your head. So I really am looking forward to some of the scene art in the story, because I'm looking forward to seeing these characters that I created, which fun fact is, I think every character in my scenario called A Mother's Love is named after somebody in real life. All of my players are named in it somewhere, at least either their first or their last name. And then several of my former players and other friends are also named. So I think anytime I needed a name, I would just kind of like either grab the first or the last name from somebody that I knew, and then either make up a new first or last name for it, or then kind of take somebody else's and jam them together. So it's actually a shout out to a lot of people that I've played with. So I'm looking forward to it a lot myself. DK Samaritan, $5. Thank you. Since you're an author, have you ever seen The Shadow of the Conqueror by Shad Brooks? Shadversity, another YouTuber. If so, what do you think about it? I have not. I'm sorry. I haven't read it. Probable Muppet, $4.99. Thank you. how much does your game experience bleed into your writing or vice versa? Any chance RPG horror story, or is that content too negative? Okay, well, there are certain game experiences that have bled through into stories. My Black Raven series, the very first short story in the Black Raven series is based off of a D&D game that we did. So as it was getting written and as it's gone through editing, a lot of the elements have changed. But the very first story, Birth of the Black Raven, was about one of our player characters did this thing for this noble, and he ended up getting framed for the murder of the noble's wife because the noble had set it all up, and then he had to flee as everybody is after him, and he had to clear his name. So yes, that actually gave birth to my entire Black Raven series. Also, my Valdican series, initially the question on that one came from a D&D question of, how would a magic gun work? A magic sword makes sense. The blade is magic. Magic blade hits the bad guy, and the bad guy gets the effect of the magic. Or a magic arrow, bow shoots arrow, magic arrow hits the bad guy. That makes sense. But then when you have a gun, the gun physically doesn't touch the bad guy. It's the bullet it does. So when I came up with Dameron, it started with the D&D question. If I was going to make a magic gun in D&D, how would I transfer the magic into the bullet? That way the bullet actually gets the magical charge as it exits the barrel. And then that ended up growing into a modern day kind of horror action series. So there's been a few elements like that have come in there, but there has been a lot of inspiration that's come from gaming. Rob Taylor, dude, have you ever walked into a place and felt like a Call of Cthulhu setting? Holy crap. Okay, so Eureka Springs, Arkansas. A few weeks ago, we did it. There is a hotel in Eureka Springs called the Crescent Hotel. And holy crap, it is a seriously Call of Cthulhu hotel. You walk through there and you are expecting anytime you turn a corner from this, I think it was built in the 19th century. It is reported as being haunted. It's on top of a kind of a small mountain overlooking a little mountain town. It was for really rich people. It spent a short time as an asylum. Yeah, this place is real. It's in Eureka Springs. So you walk through there and you expect little twins from The Shining to pop out or something. And yes, I have. And then we recently went up to, on the flip side of that, we went to Boston a few weeks ago. And while we were up in Boston, I had never been in Massachusetts. I decided to visit some of the places from all of our Call of Cthulhu games. And so we came down from New Hampshire and we went by Newburyport, and we had to drop by the Newburyport Historical Society because in the story, The Shadow over Innsmouth, that's where he goes. So we went to the Newburyport Historical Society, which they have a different name. It's like the Historical Association of Newbury or something. But they had no idea what I was talking about. And they had no idea about any sort of tiaras that they reportedly had. And but then we went down. I was still on the beach that Innsmouth's supposed to be on. Ipswich is a lot smaller than I for some reason had expected it to be. And then I went through Rockport, which Rockport was a town that was heavily mapped out in an adventure called The Star on the Shore. And I knew my way around Rockport because I had studied that map. Like, I couldn't, I didn't know every street, but I knew the main ones. And it was kind of cool to like walk up and go, holy crap, that's the church that this happened in. And we walked past this kind of veterans association for like veterans of, I think, like the Revolutionary War. I don't know. It is not a normal like kind of veterans lodge. It's something else. And it's like, oh my God, that's where we had the big battle with the bad guy in the back room of this. And this is the road where the monster came up. So that was another aspect that was a lot of fun. It was getting to walk around places that I knew only from a game. Let's see. Oh, Lucky Seven. Hey, which game that do you own do you consider a real gem in your collection? Adventures? Let's see. I don't know. My favorite adventures, Edge of Darkness is a big one. But as far as the gems, the ones that I'm proud of, the ones that I like to show off, is one day I keep telling myself I will play Horror on the Orient Express. I am very proud of that box set. I want to play that game. Um, I desperately would love to ride on the Real Orient Express because it actually does that course once a year, and I want to ride the leg from Turkey that stops in Venice. And it was that leg that was in both the original Murder on the Orient Express and in From Russia with Love. So that's the leg I want to do. And then I think once I do that, I will be ready to finally run Horror on the Orient Express. But that is one of the ones I guess I'm the most proud of, that I kind of look at and go, yeah, I got that bad boy. So there you go. A favorite and one that I am the most proud of. DP $10. Thank you. Love your videos on Conan. Do you have any advice on money systems? It's a thing. It's not one thing. The game's not great. Everything is on gold pieces. Do I have any? So in Conan, what they called a gold piece in Conan, and this is, I think, the part that screwed with me, is I've been used to so many other games, either video games or tabletop games, where a gold piece was like, it's a quarter or a dollar or whatever it is. It was a physical coin. And you got so many of these and you went and bought stuff. Conan, they call a gold piece is kind of a nebulous thing. It's like a handful of gold, I think, is kind of what it translates to. So not really. We just started kind of using it by that nebulous thing. But our first couple of games, it did kind of screw with us a bit because we were used to how normal games have always done it, where a gold piece is kind of like a buck or whatnot. And with Conan, it's kind of like, you have 5 gold, which is not really a set thing. I would probably take a gold piece, figure out the price of stuff off of it, and break that down into smaller units, and probably refer to those as silver, and then break that down into a smaller unit maybe and call that copper. I don't know if I even go down as far as copper because that begins bogging it down. But if you were to, let's say, figure out what the value of a gold piece was, compared to, let's say, something like D&D, where you've got the price guides, then you can kind of calculate down what its value should be if you were to bring that over. We didn't worry about it too much. Once we kind of learned that this was a nebulous thing, we got over it. But not everybody can. It's kind of like I never got over zones. So good luck. But I'd recommend try to keep it nebulous like they're intending, because otherwise you'll drive yourself mad. Let's see. Gumar, are you going to be posting more Traveler stuff in the future? Goddamn right I am. We will be doing, or I will be doing, a new game diary coming up. Kind of like we did for Two-Headed Serpent. We have been doing a short Traveler campaign that I will be doing as a series like I did that one. It is not the best module. So it's going to be a review of the modular campaign as well. It is not the best. It is not the best for a slew of reasons, but the adventure is epic, and we are having a lot of fun with it. So there will be reviews for that coming up. I had to buy a wolf head so I can do one of our characters who is a Vargar when I do the kind of reenactments. And I kind of I flashed through that in the Marooned on Marduk video. I kind of have me and the wolf head walk past. So it will be some more Traveler, and it will be done in the format that we kind of, or that was done for Two-Headed Serpent as a game diary series. So yes. And I also have a ton more adventures and whatnot that I want to do. We're really enjoying Traveler a lot, so expect more of that. Let's see. Josh, $2, willing to discuss worst sessions modules. Well, thank you. Well, the thing is, though, with the worst modules that I've ever read, I don't run them. So I don't really ever think about them again. So it's not that much. Worst sessions? God, I've got a lot of horror stories, and it's kind of a 50-50 split. If the reason that the game became a nightmare situation was completely my fault, or if it was outside factors of the rest of the groups. There's like 50% me screwed it up, and then 50% everything that isn't me screwed it up, which that's a lot. So I definitely have the lion's share of times that I have made a game go up in smoke. But don't really know if I've got any good ones off the top of my head that are at least, I guess, entertaining to listen to rather than just sad and depressing. Let's see. Packery V3, $20. Thank you. Please, I need help. I will be a game master for a session with some friends, and it'll be our first time playing the things I want to be a campaign. I have no idea how to do this. Well, first off, thank you. But second, if you are wanting, if they're wanting the game to become a campaign, that's not a problem. One, and I will eventually do a video over this subject, but most campaigns are not one big epic sprawling story. Most of my campaigns have been what I refer to as adventure of the week, meaning our heroes get together, we do the adventure, such as we go to the haunted castle, and then the next week or the next month, whenever you get to play next, you kind of ask your players, you're like, hey, what are you guys in the mood for? And they're like, well, we'd like to do jungle stuff. Go, okay, cool. So next week, we're off to the jungles of wherever. And there isn't a large story that goes throughout the whole thing where, like, at the beginning of the campaign they are given a quest, and at the end of this giant quest they complete this single story. We did it as adventure of the week most of the time, where it was like, the same heroes, and they get bigger, and occasionally NPCs come back and stuff, but it's kind of like, one adventure, next adventure, next adventure, next adventure. So don't get yourself freaked out thinking that if they're wanting to do a campaign, that you have to come up with some giant sprawling story or anything like that. Just give them the next adventure with those characters. Figure out a way to kind of get those two things together. Like, how do we get from the haunted castle to the jungles? Kind of give us a reason. I often would do, there is a town. It was a coastal port town. I used this in three different campaigns. That was called Stoneford, and it was a coastal town that was great because they could always get on a ship and go anywhere else. Because if we were in the mood for an ice adventure, we could get on a ship and go to the ice lands, or it was kind of a mountain range next to it, and then it kind of sprawled off to the rest of the world, and we had the rest of that continent to explore. I didn't have much more to the world than a single. Not even a continent. It was a giant peninsula. It's probably about the size of Florida. And that was pretty much all the only parts of the world that I really knew. Everything that was not kind of on the map was just out there somewhere. And that's where the jungle was that they would go to, or the ice lands were up top. But don't worry about a single linear narrative for your first campaign. Just have fun. Just play some adventures and kind of see what you like. Don't feel that you have to give them an epic saga. They will make themselves the epic saga. Just give them some adventures to do it through. A good question. Joaquim Svella, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Right, $10. Thank you. Have you ever played Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing? No. I'd love to see you do a video and sharing your experience with it if you have any. Sorry, I've never played Warhammer. I just never called to me at any time when I was looking for a new game. I've always enjoyed watching people play it at cons or whenever we used to have a Warhammer shop near us. But sorry. Let's see. And we are getting close to the hour, so hopefully we'll be wrapping this thing up pretty soon. But let's see, I've still got 10,000 questions to answer. Let's see. Rafael Vasquez, $5. Thank you. Been a huge fan for your work and writing. Have you ever gotten to get any more Scott Brown or Fourth War stories? We want what we want. No more stories concerning them specifically. I do have a few more war stories that I want to give. The only problem with war stories is you have to come up with a war story that's good to give in the video format. Many of my war stories fall into the category of you had to be there, and they're just not that funny if you weren't there. We find them hilarious, or they're really funny, but I could tell you the whole story in about 15, 20 seconds. So you can't really do a 7, 8, or 10-minute video just to kind of give kind of these little zingers that we would do. Most of our jokes are combinations of zingers. And then there's the others that I think they're best not to share on the internet. So I do have a few that fall into the category if they don't fall into any of those. So I will be making more. It just kind of comes down to the war story ones are actually a little bit more difficult for me to shoot for a lot of them, because a lot of them requires 2 characters on screen, and I procrastinate on any video that I have to do 2 characters on screen. I mean, I think the Matt Mercer one was the last one that I did like that, where I talked about the Matt Mercer effect, and I had 3 characters on screen at one point. And that video took me 7 months to work myself up to like making it, because just the technical aspect, I was like, nah, I'll do something else. I don't want to bother trying to figure that out. So I do have more. Some of them are a little bit harder to make. Let's see. Jeff Glasser, $10. Valdekin RPG. That does sound intriguing. I would be very interested in seeing what that looked like one day. But at the time being, there isn't one, but that would be fun, wouldn't it? Uncle be $10. Thank you. If you're ever going to make your own RPG rule set, what would you do and what would you focus on? I would make it a skill-based system, just because that's my jam. And man, I don't know. I can't really think of any sort of game out there that doesn't give me what I want. I'm very interested in seeing RuneQuest. I'd love to see a good skill-based fantasy game that kind of hit the notes that D&D hits, because what D&D does well, nobody can beat. But then I would love to see the kind of the skill-based mechanics that the Chaosium system has, which is kind of see how those work together. I'd love to use something that could do those 2 things. It could kind of give me that epic feel of D&D with the skill-based mechanics of Call of Cthulhu's 7e system. But I haven't read enough outside of the quick guide for the new RuneQuest to really get a feel for it. And the quick guide didn't give me too much of a feel. I think a lot of it's going to be too tied to the world. And one of the things that I would also want is one of the things that D&D hits beautifully, and that is it's beautifully generic. You don't have to subscribe to the mythology of the game in order to run the game. A GM can just pick up D&D, make up their own world, and run with it. They don't have to take any time cutting the game out of the world because the rules are so tied to it. So that's one of the things that D&D does beautifully. So I think RuneQuest is a little bit too tied to the Glorantha world setting, and I think it would require surgery to sever them. So I'd want something like that, skill-based high fantasy. See, DK Samaritan, $5. Thank you. Hey, Seth, I was wondering if you were going to review Modifius Star Trek 2D20. No. Right when we finished Conan, and the 2D20 system was not my favorite. There are certain aspects that I really liked about it, and there are certain aspects that I just couldn't. They just didn't click with me. Zones, I think, being the big one that I mention every time anybody is like, "What do you think?" Zones. So I do enjoy a good sci-fi RPG, and it just so happened right when we ended Conan is when Mongoose reached out to me with Traveler, and that has been just badass and awesome. So I have no desire to leave a sci-fi game that I am enjoying the hell out of, that could do all of the stuff I could ever want to do with Star Trek, to then adopt a new game that's tied to a specific universe that uses a system that I'm not that comfortable with. So I don't see myself ever running it, and none of my friends ever want to run me through anything. So unless somebody else runs me through it, I'm not going to play it. See, scheduled visits where fans could meet me. Well, I post up my normal convention schedule whenever I do know something. My next one I will be doing is Total Con in Marlborough, Massachusetts, and that will be this February. Um, and that is my only event that I have that I know of coming up. I don't know. I want to go back to Gen Con next year. Don't know if I will. Hopefully. And there's going to be a few more conventions that I'm going to put in kind of my name into the hat to see if they'll have me. But I'll post and share those once ever I get a confirmation of any events that I'll be at. That way, you can kind of come and meet me. Other than that, that's about it. I'm not like, I don't know if you're wanting to like me come by the 7-Eleven or something, but how about a con? See, say, let me go ahead and we'll end this real quick here. Let's see, Rosalie Peterson. When will Dweebles get a real name? Well, I know what his name is, and eventually, one day, if Dweebles is a good little boy, I will share what his name is. But in the meantime, I think it's just a lot more fun that he doesn't know it. I mean, once he learns his name, what else can I hold over him? So eventually, maybe I'll share it. Just scenario, how's your Traveler game going, or did your Traveler game go? Can you give us a plot line of what happened? Okay, I'll give you a teaser. What's going on with Traveler? Yes, we are still playing it. Yes, I got more games to do. We actually have 2 games going on simultaneously. So I have 2 Traveler campaigns, but they're the same players. Basically, one of them was the backup characters for the primary campaign, and then the backup characters have kind of become epic unto themselves and kind of gone this way, and the normal campaign is going off this way. But fun story out of our current Traveler campaign, and this will eventually be in the game diary, which I'll be starting the next month or so. The Travelers crossed a guy, and he paid an agent to go aboard their ship, posing as a passenger, and he was going to then try to place a bomb on their ship with the timer. So the player characters were not ever actually supposed to catch this guy. It was originally going to be, there was going to be this bomb. It was hidden somewhere in their engine room, and whenever they came out of jump space, it was going to send out a ping. And their sensors operator was going to occasionally notice this ping. But I was never expecting them to figure out that the guy did it. It was a really rare chance. I had him roll luck because we use the optional luck mechanic in it to see who was up, and 3 characters were up. So I was like, okay, well, that was weird. And then made him roll a recon, the spot check, to see if they might have heard anything. And it was really hard. This guy was a good agent, and they heard him. So they ended up finding this guy that was placing a bomb on their ship. They didn't know what to do with him. They interrogated him. They knew who had hired him. And then they stuck him in a low passage freezer. And he is still aboard the ship. And he has become their mascot. And his name is Jerry. At least that's what they think it is. And they talk to Jerry. And he's actually one of the characters' best friends because he got drunk. And he's just sat in that room and talked to Jerry, who's some poor bastard in a freezer on their ship. And he's kind of the mascot for that campaign. So that's some of the weirdness that's happened in Traveler. And I said I was going to be ending this soon. Ashtray the Gay, $10. Thank you very much. I can do a greatest hits of classic D&D campaigns, my friends. Beside the ones you've made videos, are there any old D&D modules you suggest for that sort of thing as far as the greats? Let's see. There was Keep on the Borderlands, Slave Pits of the Undercity. I think. I mean, if you want to do one of the epic ones, there's the Queen of the Demon Web Pits series, which that is going after Loth. So I think that starts with Against the Giants, and then there's the Depths of the Earth, and then it goes off to Loth. I think there's another one in there. So that's an epic one. Now, if you ever want to do my favorite first edition stuff, that would be Lankmar. I was a massive Lankmar fan, but it wasn't as popular with people like that. But if you want to do what I recommend as being badass, Lankmar. If you want to do the classics, definitely White Plume Mountain. Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh was not popular in its day, but it was good, and Wizards of the Coast agreed. That's why they re-released it. White Plume Mountain. The other one I did, the Serpent God. My God, that's a good one. I have ripped that one off many times for private games, like my one-offs. So Matt McLeod, $5. Thank you so much for your Traveler. As much as I love running Call of Cthulhu, Traveler has always had a soft spot in my heart from way back in the Little Black Book days. How are you digging it? I'm freaking loving it. We're still getting used to some of the rules. There's so much to it. I want to do more ship-to-ship combat. My Travelers keep running away whenever I throw ships at them. So hopefully we can eventually have a good ship-to-ship combat with boarding, and either the Travelers have to defend their ships with laser guns and swords, or they have to board another ship with laser guns and swords. That's the big thing that I am looking forward to. But we've been doing a lot. I love it. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and start wrapping this thing up. But before we do, there is one thing that I want to do, and that is let me go ahead and call in my producers here. Cole, could you come in here? Could you say hi to the internet for me, please? Come on. I know you're there. Come on, Cole. Come on in. Hop over. Say hello to the internet.
Hello, internet.
Yes, this is my very first guest that I've ever had on my show. He has actually been kind of helping me out with some of my questions. That way I can kind of answer them a little bit faster than I was, which I still wasn't answering them too fast. But.
Oh, yeah, we got stuck on the donations for a while there. We built up a lot at the very beginning, and now didn't get very far.
But anyways, just say hi to the internet, man. Thank you so much for helping me out. And go and send your old man in here. And the next person that I want to kind of bring in here as my second guest ever on the show, Monumental Night, is my buddy George, who is... Sit down, George.
I'm sitting.
Okay. This is George. George, any of the stuff that they might know you as?
Let's see. Well, the Scott Brown incident. Yeah.
Scott Brown, he recommended that they call the agent, and you were JJ.
I was JJ. Yep.
And,
falling out of the plane. My gun jammed. Dear diary, today my gun jammed.
So here's actual proof that I do have real players, and we spend most of our games laughing our butts off.
Yep. I am not dweebles. I have been assured I am not dweebles.
Oh, you're not. Okay, so let's go wrap this up, man. So anyways, actual proof that I have friends. It required that I built a channel for years in order to make friends. Let's see, let me go ahead and just kind of get this last one, and then we will be done. Xanalis Grim. Hey Seth, big fan. I was wondering if there's any themes that you've shied from trying to tell your tabletop games, but have always wanted to. Not really. We have done all sorts of themes like that. There have been a few games that I've wanted to run that I couldn't for various reasons. One example of that I've always wanted to run, Beyond the Mountains of Madness. At the Mountains of Madness is one of my favorite Lovecraft stories. I saw the Beyond the Mountains of Madness campaign, and in what I have read of it, I know that one of my players would definitely not enjoy it. So I have had to put that one off as one that I can't really run, because that is not something that would work well with my group. Because anything that I run kind of has to pass the test, are they going to like this? And with some of the aspects of that one, I looked at it and go, yeah, no, he's probably gonna hate this. So I had to shy away from that one, because and that theme was accounting. There's a lot of accounting, more than Traveler, which is a lot of accounting. But my player, who's an accountant, doesn't want to do accounting in any of his games. So there are a few games like that I've had to shy away from. And then, tell you what, we're going to do the last question, and then we are going to go ahead and call it a night, because it is a Friday night, and I am sure that other people would love to go do stuff. But Happy Wolf, will you make a more in-depth video about Traveler? Got interested, but it seems hard. Yes, I will do a more in-depth video on Traveler. I have envisionings of how I would want to do it, which will probably be like how I did my Call of Cthulhu series, where I do kind of an introduction and then let's make a character. And then that one will probably be, we are now going to make multiple characters at once to show how you build a group, as well as rules, mechanics, combat, ship stuff, as far as like the world, reading the world profiles and all that. Traveler has not been that hard for us, but a lot of it still comes down to on where you're coming from, as far as what your experience with the tabletop games are. Since we did so many skill-based games, we fell straight into Traveler, and it was like, where has this been for all these years? And it's actually my buddy Curtis was always telling me about Traveler. He just never told me much about it other than he'd go, oh yeah, Traveler. And that was the end of the story. And to go ahead, we'll go ahead and call this one a night. But Jordan, the PH is silent. $5. Congrats on 50K. Hey, well, thank you, man. I am going to catch you soon, I hope. And you better give me a race, brother. So anyways, go ahead and call this one a night. Thank you very much. And as always, have a great day.